Welcome to the Visionary Fiction Alliance Authors Interview Series. I'm your host, Brad Swift, and it's my pleasure to hang out with other visionary fiction authors to explore the fascinating and evolving genre of visionary fiction. This show is a part of Visionary Fiction Alliance, whose purpose is to both increase awareness of the visionary fiction genre and to help readers discover, explore, and enjoy visionary fiction. And one of the ways that we're fulfilling on that purpose is with the Visionary Fiction Reader's Pass, which is a kind of a subscription-based store, similar to Kindle Unlimited, except in this case, the focus is, you guessed it, visionary fiction. You can find out more information about the Visionary Fiction Reader's Pass and other resources at our website, which is at www.visionaryfictionalliance.com. Now, let's meet today's visionary fiction author. Hello, today it's my pleasure to introduce you, our listening audience, viewing audience, to Gerald R. Stanek. Now, Gerald is a student of the esoteric teachings of various wisdom traditions. His writing focuses on the interplay between the mundane and the ethereal worlds, and the effects of transcendental experiences on subjective reality. The characters of his novels and stories, such as The Road to Shambhala and Contact and Other Impressions, seek to be active participants in the expansion of consciousness and the evolution towards unified humanity. That sounds like a mouthful, and it sounds like a lot of meaty stuff that we can explore today. So welcome to the show, Gerald.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a privilege to be here.
Well, we're looking forward to this. I've really enjoyed all these interviews so far. I've come away with a new realization, new revelations about visionary fiction as well. So I'm looking forward to it today. Now, I don't know if you've watched the other interviews we've done, but we like to start with two questions, pretty much the same two questions, so we can get a different cut at these questions. So the questions are, how would you personally define visionary fiction? And why do you think it's important, especially to our world today?
Well, visionary fiction, is the first definition I ran across, was that it's where the evolution of consciousness drives the plot. And the characters are experiencing an expansion of awareness during the story. And I would add, for myself, it's always important to clarify, to specify that anything really can be considered expansion of consciousness. Somebody learns about race car driving, they've expanded their consciousness. Right. So, I mean, to me, it's becoming aware of the higher self and the soul, whatever you want to call it, and making that a part of your purpose and your focus in your life. So that's my definition of visionary fiction, is when the characters are involved in that.
Yeah.
And of course, it's very important in the world today because the world is having a few problems, and it can't hurt. Yeah.
And just so the viewers on this, because we'll be actually airing this part, I believe it's in the first to middle part of June. We're recording this in mid-April. I believe I was counting it up just before the show. I think we were about 5 weeks into, self-isolating. So yeah. We're right in the midst of the coronavirus, pandemic itself. So tell me a little bit more on, given that as a context, and again, maybe in June, a lot of this will be behind us. I don't know about that, but
well, the coronavirus may be behind us, but the rest of the world's problems are certainly not going to be behind us.
Yes, yes. And how do you, I'm sorry, how do you think the people reading visionary fiction, how can it make that life, make an impact in that life?
Well, I think it can help people to realize that we're not alone. We're all connected, and the whole world is in it together. And we need to address all these problems together instead of as separate little communities, separate nations. It's ridiculous in this day and age that we're still considering ourselves to be separate when we're all one species and all one planet, and we've got to come together to solve these things.
Yeah, yeah, very good, very good. Now, when did you first realize that this genre of visionary fiction existed, and how did you go about discovering it?
It wasn't until I'd written, I think, my second or third novel that you write a novel and you have to go into the process of trying to categorize it. Everybody wants to categorize everything, which is ridiculous in itself. And you think, well, it's not science fiction, it's not fantasy, it's not a Western, it's not a mystery, and then, so it wasn't until I'd written a couple of books that they came out with the designation of visionary fiction. I said, well, that's, expansion of consciousness. That's what I've been writing all along. That's what I've been trying to get across to people. Even I finished my first book 30 years ago, and it wasn't a category at that time.
Yeah.
So there wasn't really any good way to market it. Therefore, if it doesn't fit into the round peg, fit in the square hole, or however that goes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I came across it only about 15 years ago, probably. And I said, well, that's definitely what I've been trying to write all along. So
it's interesting. I've found quite a few of the visionary fiction authors that I've either interviewed, formally in this way, or just, casually had conversations with. That's awesome. It's been many of the same experiences where they had, okay, I wrote this thing, it doesn't quite fit anywhere. And then, what I ended up doing is I went on the internet, and started to look around. And I had this notion of, being a visionary author. So I went on Google one day and did a search for that, and lo and behold, Visionary Fiction Alliance came up. Said, wow, there's even an alliance around this. So
yeah, that's a great thing to find. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I believe it was on your website that I came across this, and we'll share your website address, towards the end of the show. It says, you wrote, I have written several books in the relatively new genre of visionary fiction. As I write, I seek to be an active participant in the exchange of energy and information between the mundane and the ethereal worlds. Can you expand on that a bit? What does it mean to be an active participant in such an exchange?
To be conscious of where stories come from. They're not coming out of only out of your own experience or your own mind. Things come to you from beyond the veils, and if you're conscious of that and participate in it, you'll get more inspiration that way, rather than just trying to decide ahead that I'm going to make this a good murder mystery and this is the way it's going to go, A, B, C, D. You got to keep yourself open to what Spirit's trying to tell you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that you can pass it on.
Yeah. 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 I know it's popular in fiction writing in general. When we talk about being either, plotters or pantsers, either you plot out your story in rich detail, or you kind of write it by the seat of your pants. And I've always thought of that as more like a continuum. There's, strict plotters at one end and pantsers at the other end. And most of us are somewhere in between that, not either or. So where would you say you tend to fit on that continuum?
Probably in the middle. Yeah, I'll do a plot ahead of time or an outline, but never stick to it. So I don't sit down and just write something straight out. It's a very long process and takes a lot of time for me. I don't have a lot of terrific flow, so I do try to start with an outline, but it inevitably doesn't include everything that you end up wanting to, and you come across something that you realize is much better, and then you got to change your whole outline or just keep going, so
Yeah.
It's
That's
never
reassuring. That's reassuring for me, for sure, that I'm not the only one that thinks he knows where it's going. And then, like you said, if you're really tapping into whatever you would call it, the creative self, I often refer to it as my muse,
mm-hmm.
that aspect of ourselves may have a completely different direction it wants to take it. And so, then we have to, as the author, we have to make the decision. Are we going to go this way, or are we going to go the way that our muse is really directing us?
Yeah.
Your, I think you, again, this may have also been on your website. You said my latest works, The Road to Shambhala and Contact and Other Impressions, and now your latest one, which is soon to be published in June by the time this airs. Let's see if I can pronounce it correctly. Rosa Mundi.
Yeah.
You say these books focus on the interplay between these realms, the realms being the mundane and the ethereal worlds, and the effects of transcendental experience on the subjective reality. So your latest book is regarding that as well. So without giving away the plot, we don't want to give away anything there. We want people to be enticed to pick up a copy. But can you expand on that a bit, about particularly in regards to how Rosa Mundi fits that?
I just generally think that it's important for people to be aware that we're not here, we're not in this alone, and we're not the only ones involved in this experience of our own life. There are beings around us, surrounding us, living within us, and that we are inhabiting. It's a very complex world that we can't see, and I like to write stories that bring that to light, that we're not working on this alone, that people are helping us, or beings are helping us, or spirits, or however you want to call them, on many different layers and levels. And that's definitely evident in Rosa Mundi. There's a lot of that going on. It's involves a hospice aide who comes to help out at the bedside of a dying self-help guru. And she's not going to stop being involved in people's lives just because she's passed on, so those are the kinds of things that I bring out in these books.
Yeah, very good. Very good. How did this idea for this book come about, and how long? Well, let me ask you that first. How did it come about? And then I'll ask you the second part of the question.
I don't know who has pat answers to these kinds of questions. I couldn't tell you how it came about. I had in mind that I wanted to write a book that was even more explicitly showing the different levels of consciousness that are involved in everything that we see. That was the only thing that I really had in mind when I started the book, and I just pay attention to the hints that are given to me, or you wake up in the morning, you have a little idea, and you see how that fits in. We're constantly being led to greater awareness by those that are helping us from the other side, if we just pay attention.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, I recently finished a visionary novel called The Fringe Candidate, and I resisted the idea of writing it. And again, I refer to that creative self as my muse. Finally got my attention by not letting me sleep.
Yeah.
Just for, night after night, I'd wake up with the other pieces of it, and it's like, no, I don't write political satire.
Yeah.
And
You can't
finally I
ignore
said,
them.
yeah,
They'll keep at you.
yeah. Finally I said, for my own sanity, if nothing else, and so I can start sleeping again, I'll write it. And
Hmm.
luckily, fortunately, the muse did not abandon me, but continued to feed me the story, and it was really one of the most fun and engaging stories I've written in quite a few years. So
Yeah, I read it. It was very good. I enjoyed it.
yeah, good. So the other part of that is, it sounded like you originally came up with this particular idea. So it wasn't a character that came to you, but the idea itself.
Well, the idea came to me, and so I said, well, fine, okay, how am I going to do that? And years, maybe 18 months went by before I started really getting any idea for a story. I just kept focused on, this is what I want to tell. Is this structure of how things work between the transcendent and the normal everyday world. I did start getting the narrator's voice in my head after a while, telling me things, and then I tried to work out a plot, and that took me a couple of years to try to do that. And then, of course, when I'm writing it, I ditched half of it anyway. So, yeah. So I've been. It took 2 or 3 years to get it written. Yeah.
Okay. That was the question I was leading into. So thanks for answering it. It's, and it sounded like a good half of that time was kind of with it percolating kind of in the background of
Yeah.
consciousness. Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, when I think about it, the previous book, the Contact and Contact and Other Impressions, was sort of practice for the novel. That's short stories, and now I realize that there are sort of sketches, the way somebody would do a sketch of a big painting. You do a sketch of a character here and a character there, and then you put them together. The great masters would not just paint this big painting. They're going to do little areas first and design it out.
Yeah.
And that's sort of what I did with those short stories, but I wasn't really aware of that. I was just this group of short stories, and now I look back and I can see how they all led me to be able to do the things I needed to do in the novel. So that was interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's unlikely that you would have been able to write the books in the reverse order, because, like you said, one was
Yeah.
preparation for the other.
Yeah, I think it definitely was. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And is there a particular practice or practices that you use that you found effective for you to help you tap into that higher self, that creative self?
I meditate every day. That's the main thing. And like I say, yeah, I don't really get a lot of ideas in meditation, but if you meditate every day and keep that channel clear, then when you're ready to work, the ideas will come easier,
Yeah.
cleaner.
Good.
Yeah.
And what is there a particular message or messages or points that you would ideally like the reader of Rosamundi to come away with?
As I said, that we are not alone here, and there is always help if you are open to it, and there's always more information if you're open to it, and there's always more guidance and more healing and more relief, and all of those things are there and available if you make yourself open to it, and that there's always a way to resolve any problem, including global warming and all those kinds of things. That there's mass extinction, maybe on the horizon, but there's so much consciousness is involved in trying to resolve it that if we just stay open to it, it'll work itself out.
Yeah.
Eventually.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, here fairly early into this coronavirus, I'm seeing that a lot. The creativity, when in many ways you could say humanity is really pressed against the wall in a way it hasn't been in our lifetime. The creativity and not waiting for our quote leaders to guide the way, but to take it on to ourselves. From big companies to small companies to individuals, seem to be really making coming to that point of what can I do, not what can they do, but what can I do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the key.
Well, let's turn our attention just for a few minutes to the process of writing, and some of which we have already been doing. I'll give you maybe a little bit more fun, not quite so difficult question to answer. We'll see. So as a writer, and as a writer of visionary fiction, what would you choose as your mascot or your avatar or your spiritual animal? Do you have one? Or if not, what would you choose if you were to pick one?
That's a very interesting question. I've never thought of that. My characters tend to have all of those things. They all have different one. Never thought about for myself. I don't know. I'll be the Buddha. I'll be my avatar.
Okay. Okay, very good. Very good. Well, that's something you can ask during, or after your meditation or something, to see if there was any volunteers out there that would come to yourself. You've been writing, if I heard you correctly, about 30 years. Is that correct?
40 years.
40 years. Okay. All right. Very good.
Yeah, I finished my first novel 30 years ago.
Gotcha. Did
Yeah,
you start it 10 years before that, and it took 10 years, or you were writing?
Almost. I had written something else before that, which never saw the light of day, and a few other little things. And it did take me almost 10 years to write that first one.
Very good. Yeah. Very good. Well, I'm going to ask this question. It's one of those questions, kind of I think I know the answer, but I'm going to ask it, and sometimes I'm surprised. Do you think of your writing as a career or a calling or something else?
It's definitely, anymore I think of it as an obligation almost. It's something that the muse doesn't let you alone, and you feel like you have to get out there what it's giving you, and it's definitely not an occupation, because it doesn't pay that well. Not very many of us that can make a living at it, but a calling. You can try to ignore it for only so long. If it's calling you, you're going to end up having to do it. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, one of my life coaches many years ago used to talk about I think she called it the universal UPS truck. It's like our higher self, comes to deliver some, package, some gift inside of that package. We may not know exactly what it is. And if we refuse the package, she said, it's not a problem. It's just like the UPS truck. It'll come back again and, give you another message. He said the one thing that is different about the universal UPS truck is each time it comes, the next time, it's a little bit more forceful on trying to deliver the package.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think, the muse does have a way of, again, in my case here recently, keeping me, waking me up, late at night, until I finally surrendered to let's give it a
Yeah.
shot itself.
Yeah.
So, do you happen to know what's next for you? Has your higher self informed you as to what it's got at work?
Not yet. I'm still, still working on getting this one published and getting it out there. And even though it's finished, it's not ever really finished. You got to continue with the marketing and all that sort of thing. So yeah, I haven't started anything else yet. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Very good. Well, just to let everybody know, Rosamundi is available, from what I understand, and certainly will be available by the time this airs, on pre-order or on Gerald's new website. And I'll put, somewhere either down below me or below him, but it's www.geraldstanek.com. That's GeraldStanek.com. So you can check that out. And like I said, you can pre-order the book there. I understand it is coming out in June. And if I understood correctly, it's also going to be available as an audiobook. Is that correct?
I believe so. That's what my publisher is saying. So I think it's in the works.
That's probably, I would think that would be kind of a pleasant thing to be able to say. Yeah, that's up to my publisher. He's taking care. So.
Yes, it's very nice to be able to say that.
So it sounds like, at least as far as you know right now, you won't be narrating it, but somebody else will be narrating it. Is that correct?
No, I narrated one of my other books once, and this one has a female narrator. I didn't think it was really appropriate for me to do it. So.
I understand. Very good. Well, again, thank you, Gerald, for spending time with us.
Thank you
very much. Again, it's GeraldStanek.com, and his book coming out very soon is Rosamundi. And I'll be back here in just a moment with today's Right on Purpose coaching tip.
Okay.
Take care, everybody. Welcome back. This video interview is sponsored by Right on Purpose Coaching. And here's today's Right on Purpose coaching tip. As I've said before, in my coaching practice, Right on Purpose, many of my clients are aspiring authors and writers, people who want to move from the recurring thought of one day, someday, I want to write something, and many of them want to write a book. Yet the thought of such a task may freeze them like a deer in headlights. Well, today we're going to look at one of the key elements that is often missing, that when it's present will propel them forward, and that is purpose. Now, I know some of you might be saying, well, my purpose in writing is to make money, like making a living at it. Yeah, that's fine. And yet, making money really isn't a type of purpose that I'm speaking to. That's more of a result. No, what I'm talking about is connecting your writing with your deeper purpose, as in your life purpose. Like, why are you here on this planet? Now, here's a twist, a little different perspective I'd like you to try on. Your purpose is not what you do, even though people that I've interviewed over the years as a life on purpose coach have said so. I'm suggesting instead that thinking in that way is really a case of mistaken identity. Remember, we're all human beings, not human doings. So your purpose is more about who you are as a being. I might even say who you are as a spiritual being, and what you came here to this life to be and to experience. And when you get clear about what that purpose is, you'll begin to tap into another power, the power of passion that comes along with it. Together, your purpose and your passion will fuel you forward in all areas of your life, including if you should choose to express your true, divinely inspired purpose through writing. And that's today's Right on Purpose coaching tip. If you've heard yourself say, maybe for years, one day I want to try my hand at writing, or someday I'd really like to write a book. Well, maybe we should talk. Start by going to the link below and stay tuned for future Visionary Fiction Alliance interviews and the Write on Purpose coaching tips. In the meantime, may your life be on purpose, filled with passion, and yeah, how about some play as well? Take care and stay safe.